Hello and welcome to Not Fake News. We got a classic, another time where Don Lemon just snaps, shuts him right down, can't take it. He's the only reporter I've ever seen do these types of things, at least that I've seen. You ready? And watch Sheriff Clark wipe the living streets with this guy.
Officers dead, 3 wounded in Baton Rouge. A really tough day for Baton Rouge and for the country, really. Here to talk about how to keep our police safe is Sheriff David Clark of Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. He is going to be speaking at the Republican convention tomorrow night. Sheriff, thank you very much for that horrific day. I spoke to the heads of the Sheriff Department, the Police Department, and the state police down there, and they told us how their hearts were reeling. Their message is peace.
He's right now he's thinking, you lying piece of crap. Your heart is reeling?
Coming together in the country. What's your message?
He looked him dead straight in the eye right there, and then, ugh.
You don't believe that for 1 minute, do you?
That their message is?
Yeah.
That's what they said to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe them.
Any protests over the deaths of these cops today in Baton Rouge?
I don't know that.
Any riots or protests over the police officers in Dallas, Texas?
What are you asking?
It's pretty simple.
You didn't hear him? He spoke very clearly.
Question.
I asked you what's your message to the people. Their message is one of peace. What is your message?
My message has been clear from day one 2 years ago. This anti-cop sentiment from this hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter has fueled this rage against the American police officer. I predicted this 2 years ago. So what I want to know,
okay, Sheriff.
do I want to know?
With all due respect, do you know that this was because of that?
Yes, I do.
As a law enforcement officer?
I've been watching this for 2 years. I predicted this. This anti-police rhetoric sweeping the country has turned out some hateful things inside of people that are now playing themselves out on the American police officer. I want to know, with all of the black-on-black violence in the United States of America, by the way, when the tragedies happened in Louisiana and Minnesota, do you know that 21 black people were murdered across the United States? Was there any reporting on that?
A black officer who was killed today. But was
there any reporting on that?
Sheriff, please, let's just keep the volume down here. So I understand, and listen. I'm
looking at 3 dead cops this week,
Sheriff,
and I'm looking at 5 last year. You're trying to tell me to keep it down?
If you'll just please, we can keep it civil. So, because the message to people at home, I'm sure you want, is one of civility.
I wish you had that message of civility
have a conversation
toward this hateful ideology, these purveyors of hate.
Know what my message is.
That's
what I want to say to you is,
these people preach
fire
and virtue.
We'll be right
in the
back.
name
We're
of
going to go to break,
hate.
and we'll be right back. All I'm going to do is have a conversation. I can't have a conversation with you if we're both talking at the same time. What it sounds like to me is that you're accusing me of violence and supporting a narrative that I'm not necessarily in support of. And if that's what you're accusing me of violence, then you can leave. That's not true. I don't support violence of any type against police officers, against anyone. So if you're accusing me of that, then you're welcome to leave. But if you want to have a conversation,
He just got his higher intellect just kicked in.
I'm more than willing to welcome a conversation with you. I don't disagree with you about there's a narrative across the country that could be harming
Sheriff's about to hit him with a good question.
Police officers, but we don't know right now, as someone who's in law enforcement, if that was the actual cause of it. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do we know that generally the American law enforcement officers are racist? Do we know this?
Go on.
I asked a question.
Do I know American general law enforcement are racist? I don't think anyone is accusing. If you're insinuating that people are accusing or saying that law enforcement across this country as a whole are racist, then your assumption is wrong.
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you know this. There is no data, there is no research that proves any of that nonsense. None.
You'd have to be more specific about what data and what nonsense you're talking about.
that law enforcement officers treat black males different than white males in policing in these urban centers.
There is data that's.
There is not data.
I don't know. The president spoke about it. Cedric Alexander,
The
who is a law
president has
enforcement
been
officer,
lying about it. He said it again the other day when he said black males are 2 times more likely to be shot by a law enforcement officer than white males. Don, that is a lie.
That is not a lie.
It is a lie.
Yeah.
Show me.
Research.
Show me.
The research
Show
that
it to
we
me then.
have from the Washington Post. That
The Washington
Associated
Post
study
debunked
is
that
also
nonsense.
There's also research.
He also said this
Sheriff,
time.
There's also research.
He continues.
A Harvard professor that also showed that black people are treated more aggressively by police officers.
No, you are
than other
wrong in your
You
interpretation
are
of that
wrong.
Harvard
I
study
love it.
because I read the study. That's not what he said. He said he was surprised to find
He was surprised to find that in shootings of the most severe in shootings that he found no evidence that there was a difference. Also, it should be noted that that study was a very small sampling of police departments across the country. Many people did not find it credible, but it is also interesting that in that research he found that blacks were treated differently when it came to aggressive policing, but for the most egregious shootings he found no difference. That's what that study showed.
Well, based on what? Just generally? Are we talking about high crime areas? Are we talking about police officers being under attack? Because let's go back to where this whole thing started in Ferguson, Missouri. The lie was hands up, don't
lumping
shoot.
a whole bunch of things into one. If we
Okay.
could do one specific
That's
thing
where
and
this
stick to
whole
it.
phony movement
we'll get
started.
to it.
It started out as hands up,
Talking
don't
about
shoot.
Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Okay. So if you want to if you would need to speak to someone who is a member of Black Lives Matter about whether they have perpetrated a fraud on the American people. That's up to Black Lives Matter. That's not me. I'm neither a member of Black Lives Matter, I'm neither a supporter or someone who doesn't support them. I simply report on Black Lives Matter.
Do you condemn the anti-police rhetoric
Oh, wow.
coming from this hateful ideology?
As a journalist sitting here on television, I don't have to condemn anyone, anything. That is something that
Well,
you
I
can
do.
ask
Well, I
other
do.
people around the country.
I
that it's
condemn
their
them
jobs to condemn
just
that.
like I condemn the
Just report
hateful
them back.
ideology out of groups like the KKK. All right? I condemn it. There is no place in American discourse for that sort of vile, vitriolic hate coming out of this ideology. This has fueled and fanned.
I wish he would have asked him, do you condemn the vile rhetoric out of the KKK? And I bet you Don Lemon would have said, yes, of course I do. Then he would have been able to ask him the question he asked. Now let me ask you again. Would you condemn Black Lives Matter?
The flames
But he's doing a great job.
of this anger toward the American police officer. There's only one group in America, one time, that truly cares about the lives of black people in these urban ghettos. And it's the American police officer who goes down there on a daily basis, puts their life on the line to protect who? Black people. So when you say we just want to have a
Put their lives on
conversation,
the lines to affect,
let's
to protect
have a
all people.
conversation about the black on black crime, which kills more black males, which is more of a threat to any black male in the United States than a law enforcement officer.
Sheriff. Yes, that's a different conversation. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. There's an issue when it comes to violence. Black on black crime, or it's crime. White people kill white people, tend to kill white people.
You know,
Black
here we
people
go.
tend to
Not
kill black
in the
people.
numbers. Not in the
Okay,
numbers.
That's fine, but that's a different
I don't care
conversation.
who white
That is a
people are killing.
different conversation than police brutality. And we're not having that conversation right now.
What
and
police-
again, I want to be very
Let me
clear
ask
with you.
you this.
I condemn all violence of any type, just for the record.
Was the situation between Mike Brown and Darren Wilson, was that police brutality?
But we're not talking about Mike
Yes
Brown
or no?
and Darren Wilson.
I am.
No, if you're asking me what the Justice Department showed, the Justice Department showed that it exonerated Officer Darren Wilson, and that the hands up, don't shoot narrative was a false narrative. That has been reported by
And
CNN
that
and by others.
was another phony report.
What does that,
that was
have to
debunked.
do with Baton Rouge?
All right,
Louisiana?
because when you take in
What does that have
when
to
you
do
take
with
in
Baton Rouge, Louisiana?
rates of involvement in violent crime, and crime in general, but violent crime, you're going to see that black males are overrepresented.
Yeah.
Overrepresented
Yeah.
in terms of being involved in violent crime. That's going to mean
Sure.
more arrests. That's going to be more people going to prison. This stuff has already been debunked.
Sheriff, that's a different conversation.
Every
One that
time,
many people
every
don't-
time
and one that
you
many-
don't have a response
I
to
thought-
something I say.
Ooh,
You say
It's not that
different
I don't have a
conversation.
response to you. Is that we're having two different conversations.
I interrupted, but he said every time you don't have a response to what I have to say, you say it's a different subject. That's what he said. I interrupted because I wanted to say, behind the scenes, you have 3 people screaming into Don Lemon's ear answers. That's why it's Sheriff Clark against a room full of people. It's not just him against him, number one. And it's always like that with these people. But oh, Don Lemon, this is the beginning of when he started to fall.
I'm talking about.
In general.
I'm asking the questions here. You're answering the questions by asking questions about some other subject that we're not discussing.
We're
That
talking
is
about
not a
this
conversation.
hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter. You said you're not a member. You can't be a member. It's not an organization.
That's
There's no
what
structure.
That's what
It
you're
is
talking
an
about. Listen, I
ideology,
understand,
and it is a
and I understand
hateful
that you're very.
ideology.
I understand it's a very
These
stressful time for
individuals,
you.
these individuals,
And Sheriff, we appreciate you coming on.
they preach
Thank you.
vile and vitriol in the name of virtue.
Thank you, Sheriff. We appreciate it.
Let's see what this is. If you don't have time.
Tonight, a Texas sheriff saying anti-police rhetoric from groups like Black Lives Matter led to the death of a sheriff's deputy who was shot execution-style Friday night. As investigators search for a motive, the accusations that the deputy was targeted because he wore a uniform are sparking new tensions between the Black Lives Matter movement and law enforcement. The suspect, 30-year-old Shannon Miles, he made his first court appearance today as we see shackled and staring straight ahead as the prosecutor detailed the brutal murder of Deputy Darren Goforth, shot 15 times, point blank. The suspect allegedly unloading his entire pistol into the father of 2. Ed Lemondera is out front in Houston.
It was so quiet when Shannon Miles walked into the Houston courtroom, you could only hear the sound of the shackles around his ankles and waist. A show of force looking on as several dozen sheriff's deputies stared down the man accused of killing their fellow officer.
He unloaded the entire weapon into Deputy Goforth.
Prosecutors gave the most detailed account yet of how Shannon Miles allegedly ambushed Deputy Darren Goforth as he was walking back to his patrol car at pump number 8.
And he runs up behind Deputy Goforth and puts a gun to the back of his head and shoots. Deputy Goforth hits the ground, and then he continues to unload his gun, shooting repeatedly into the back of Deputy Goforth.
The prosecutor says Miles emptied all the rounds from his .40 caliber handgun, 15 shots in all, before walking to his truck and driving away from the scene. Deputy Goforth left dead in a pool of his own blood, shell casings on the ground around him. On this spot now, a memorial of teddy bears and flowers has blossomed in Deputy Goforth's honor. Investigators say ballistics tests linked the shell casings at the crime scene to a handgun found in Shannon Miles' home garage.
What more do you need to know? So, yeah, that's Black Lives Matter for you. Sheriff Clark, true patriot. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't subscribed. Share this with your friends because that's very important. And if you like what we're doing here at Not Fake News, please like the video. It's very important that you do that, and we really appreciate it. When you like our videos, it pushes us up to the top of Google while pushing down the crap propaganda videos from the Democrats. So, like the video. See you next time at Not Fake News.